Welcome to Eternal Paradigm. Together we're uncovering the human experience and exploring physical, mental, emotional and spiritual stories with me, your host, Urmi Raval. Welcome to this episode of Eternal Paradigm. I hope you're enjoying your journey to find you. Before I start, can I just say thank you for all of your immense feedback, which has been phenomenal. And just to hear from each individual who has heard an episode that has made them realize something, has motivated them to move towards upgrading themselves or a certain part of their life is just phenomenal. I am forever in absolute awe and amazement. And it's just amazing because to have this opportunity to be able to connect with so many new and wonderful people is fantastic. But what's also really amazing is to be able to have so many different, brave, courageous people join me as guests to share their story. And that's where today's episode is heading. I have another amazing guest for you. This episode, my guest is in the form of the lovely Athina Crilley. Now, those of you who are already listening to various podcasts or are aware of different stuff that's going on YouTube, she is the host of Finding My Fit podcast. And she's a podcaster, an online coach, and a content creator. The thing about Athina is, apart from the fact that she's amazingly cool to talk to, and I have been a fan for quite some time, so I kind of had one of those really geeky fandom moments. So when I first got in touch with her, I was like probably a little bit random in my email, like a gushing kind of schoolgirl with a crush. Oh my God, I'm such a fan. But there you go. Anyway, so we caught up. And we had a conversation and it was really, really cool just to have a chat and to learn about her because I've watched so many different things. I've heard her talking about it. But when you actually get to have a conversation with someone, the dynamic is quite different. The energy feels different. And it was just so lovely. So you're going to hear more about what we talk about. So let me just kind of give you a quick snapshot, which is that Athina had an eating disorder for 7 years and now she is fully recovered. And in our conversation, she's talking to me openly about her experience and what happened at key points of her life. She talks about her book, which is on my reading list. We talk about food. We talk about good vegan chocolates. There's a whole load of stuff going on. So you have to listen to this. Oh, and we talk about cats. There's a bit of law of attraction, but don't let me keep holding you back. So with that, I just want to quickly remind you all the usuals. You know how it is. So make sure that you are following me on socials. I'm on Instagram and on Facebook. And make sure that, so these are like orders now. Yeah, this is where I'm getting quite, no, I absolutely love your feedback. Like I said at the beginning, keep that coming. Keep your feedback, your reviews and your suggestions. Keep them coming on social media. Keep them coming by email. Keep them coming through all of my amazing guests who are coming onto the show and, you know, sharing with me the most amazing feedback they're getting from their episodes and from people. It's just phenomenal. Remember, you can also leave your own reviews and suggestions on podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts. You can share actual social media posts and you can share episodes with friends and family who you think will enjoy listening to this podcast. So with that, I'm going to leave you and introduce my fantastic guest.
My name is Athina. I currently live in Liverpool, which is in the northwest of England. I am a podcaster, so I do have my own podcast called Finding My Fit. I also create content online, so Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. I'm an online personal trainer, and I'm also the author of a book that released last year.
Can you tell us more about the book?
Yeah, of course. So my book is called Diaries of an Anorexic, and it's basically what it says on the tin, really. It's my diaries that I kept throughout my eating disorder. So I suffered with an eating disorder from the ages of 13 to 20. And I always told myself, if I ever recover from this, I really want to write a book about my journey and my recovery. And so last year, I was like, do you know what? I've been recovered now for about 4 or 5 years. I think now's the time to start writing. So I dug out all of my old diaries that I kept whilst I was ill, because I used to write extensively. I wrote a lot of diaries. And yeah, I just kind of pieced together my story and put it into a book. And then I inserted kind of actual extracts from my diaries word for word into the book. So that's kind of why the name Diaries of an Anorexic came about. So it's pretty much just my journey and my recovery. I wrote it to inspire people that may be suffering right now and just show them that although it might feel like true recovery is not possible, it definitely is. And I just wanted to show people that they can do it and they can live a healthy and happy life again.
When you uncovered the diaries and you pieced them together, what did you learn about yourself during that time when you were writing?
It was really interesting to read back at them, actually, because although I can obviously remember my teenage years when I was ill and I was in and out of hospital, I can remember the general gist of it. But then going back and reading like a daily journal about my experiences really did open my eyes, and it brought back all the memories of how I felt and how truly isolated and down and just how much I was really suffering at the time. Because I feel like those are feelings that we can suppress or just not think about when we've been through like a really difficult situation or a time in our life, and then we come out of it and we're fine and we're out the other side. Sometimes we kind of just try and forget a little bit about the bad times. I hope that makes sense. So yeah, it kind of just opened my eyes again to how much I was really suffering at the time.
Absolutely. And that does make sense. And you're absolutely right, because we do that, don't we? We just get over something and then move on and forget. So that must have been incredible, because you were able to go back almost into that mindset of the young person who was going through this incredible feeling of isolation. At the time, if you're okay me asking you, please tell me if you're not comfortable. At the time when you were feeling all of those different feelings, did you see at that point, or did you feel at that point, that there was going to be a way out and that there is recovery and that you are going to be content and reach yourself, if you see what I mean?
No, I didn't see any way out at the time. I always remember saying to my dad, I think I must have been about 14 or 15 at this time, so it was kind of like the middle of my illness. I always remember saying to him, I'm never going to recover. I genuinely thought at the time, I just couldn't imagine a life without anorexia. Even though I'd lived 12, 13 years of my life beforehand without it, it had been so long by that point, and I just felt totally immersed in this eating disorder, and I saw no way out, and I thought I would be suffering with it forever. And it's crazy to think that, because now I'm standing here fully recovered and it's a place that I never thought I would be at the time.
The way that you're speaking about it kind of shows it's like something that's happened, and it's almost like not a distant memory, but it's like looking back at an island and you're kind of safely on your way somewhere else. And obviously you've spent a lot of time in the situation, reflecting it, looking back, having lots of different sorts of treatments and interventions. At what point did you actually determine what the reason was for the anorexia? What was the main trigger or the main cause?
Oh, yeah, it's a tough one, because, and this is something that I wrote in my book as well. For me, I mean, I can't actually pinpoint one exact trigger. A lot of the time with people who suffer with eating disorders, a lot of the time there can be one significant thing that happened in their life. So, as an example, a family member has passed away, or their parents have divorced and they're only quite young. Some kind of big change can spark this spiral into an eating disorder. But for me, I don't really know exactly what triggered it. I can't really pinpoint an exact thing where I'm like, that's definitely what caused me to do it. I always remember being about 12 and thinking, like, comparing myself to like celebrities and thinking, why is my body not like that? Why do I not look like them? And I think that was the first time where I started to look at my body and compare myself and think about the way I looked. And I do feel like my personality is quite obsessive. Like, I'm very, once I put my head into something, I go all out and I want to be like the best I can be. And I think that kind of stood against me when it came to my eating disorder, because once I started exercising and restricting my food to lose a bit of weight and, you know, try and obtain this celebrity body, I just got obsessed with it. And it got to the point where I had to exercise every day. I had to restrict every day. And that really just spiraled me into anorexia.
It sounds exactly like you said, not only kind of obsessive, but almost controlling. Did it ever feel like that?
Yeah,
Oh,
100%.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, control is like one of the main aspects of an eating disorder. It's about knowing that it's about being able to control something in your life. So a lot of the time, say, take the example, if someone's parents have divorced and they spiral into an eating disorder, they probably feel very out of control with what's happening with their parents. So instead, they turn their focus to try and control other things in their life. And what can we control? We can control food and exercise and our weight. So control is such a central part, especially for me. It was such a central part of my eating disorder.
Thank you for sharing that. And can you just give us the name of the book again and where people can get a copy?
Yeah, of course. So the full title is Diaries of an Anorexic, a Recovery Journey. And it's available on Amazon. So it's either paperback or on Kindle as an ebook. I was originally just going to release it as an ebook, but then I know a lot of people prefer to have like an actual physical copy of a book. So,
Of course, yeah.
so I thought I'd make it available as both. So yeah, it's paperback or Kindle on Amazon.
Brilliant. Excellent. I'm going to add that to my reading list.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, no, I think it's fascinating. And you know what? Because it's a collection of your personal experience and you've been able to go back, look at it, put it all together and almost like piece yourself together and look at yourself in a way that probably wouldn't have been possible if you didn't give yourself that time to write.
Yeah, definitely. I think reflecting on something like an eating disorder, or even really reflecting on anything, it's not really something that we think to do. Like you said before, we just get on with our lives and we don't just sit there and think about what we've been through and how much we've grown from the different things that happened to us. So writing the book, definitely, it's something that I would never really have looked through my diaries, probably, maybe way in the future, but I definitely wouldn't have looked at them if I'd not dug them out to write. So yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, that's good. You're right. It's such a good move. Reflection and growth. Thank you. Just going back to that point. So how do you describe your connection between your mind and your body now? Because you're in a very different place in terms of what you're doing, how you are, all that personal growth that you've had from then till now.
I think there's always been a connection between the mind and the body. I think for everybody, the thoughts that we have lead to a certain behaviour, which leads to certain body changes, to certain reactions. So I do think they are very connected. When I look at my eating disorder, the thoughts that I had were, I need to lose weight, I look too fat, I'm lazy, I'm greedy. All of these thoughts would lead me to over-exercise and eat less, which therefore led to me being very underweight. Whereas now, my thought process is, it's not so much about, oh, if I eat this, then it's got this amount of calories, or if I exercise, I'm doing it to lose weight. Now it's more about, I exercise to be healthy. And if I want to eat, if I'm hungry, if I fancy a takeaway, if I fancy a chocolate bar, then I'll just eat it. So I think the connection between my mind and body has always been there, but it's just a much healthier connection now.
You're vegan. So tell us, kind of give me like a day in the life of you, because obviously I listen to your podcast, I watch your YouTube videos, and this is like, gets a bit kind of weird because it's kind of fan like type of stuff. And And obviously, I'm kind of watching you and listening, and your podcast has so much information, like valuable information that you're researching, putting together things that you've got personal experience of and training. And then you're sharing this information with everyone. So what's a day in the life of you like?
Oh, firstly, thank you so much. Well, it's kind of difficult because when I was in London, so I moved at the beginning of January to Liverpool. So when I was in London, I worked full time on the switchboard in my local hospital. So that was kind of my main bulk of my day was working. And then I would do the podcast, my YouTube, my Instagram on the side. Now at the moment, I'm kind of in between jobs, I guess, because I've just moved to Liverpool, so I obviously had to leave my job in London. At the moment, my day kind of revolves around researching for my podcast. I also do some kind of guest blogging for various different people. I've got my online clients for my coaching, and then I also create my YouTube and my Instagram content like in between doing all of that, I guess. So I am one of those people where I wake up and I have about 20 different things to do because for some reason I just like to give myself way too many tasks, but that keeps me busy. It keeps me motivated, I guess. So yeah, that's pretty much my life right now. Just focusing on my podcast and my online content, really.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean in terms of the to-do list, although I think, yeah, yes, I get you. So just before I go on, I just want to know, what was the reason for the move from London to Liverpool, and where are you from in the UK? Which part are you from?
Yeah, so originally I'm from Blackpool, which is quite close to Liverpool. It's only about an hour away. I moved to London in 2019. I just moved to London because I just wanted to, really. Me and my now ex moved down here just purely just to get out of Blackpool and try a new city. And then it kind of, I don't know, I think I always knew when I moved to London that it wouldn't be permanent because it's very expensive there and it's so, so busy. So I wanted to experience living in London. And after I'd been there for about a year and a half, I was like, I think I've done it, I want to move somewhere else. So I don't know really. I kind of just chose Liverpool because I didn't want to go back to Blackpool, but I knew I wanted to move somewhere cheaper and somewhere that was ideally a city, but not as busy as London. So Liverpool seemed to be a nice medium.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a great place. There's so much to do in Liverpool. I mean, I say that even though we're in pandemic, but putting all of that aside, there's so much going on.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. I've only been here 2 weeks and I love it.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. And I know what you mean about London. It's great. It's expensive. It's incredibly busy. And yeah, yes, I was born and brought up in London, and I kind of wanted to move out pretty much as soon as I could.
Oh.
So I get you. It's the busyness. It becomes almost like it's not personal anymore. Yeah. I think that's the nature of the city, right?
Yeah, I think sometimes you just want to go outside for a walk and not go past anybody. You just want to go somewhere quiet and walk around by yourself. Whereas London, you don't get the chance to do that ever. So you feel a little bit like, I just want people to go away. You know, like just that feeling. So yeah, London is great for some aspects, but I would never live there permanently, I don't think.
Yeah, I get that. So let's talk about your podcast. Obviously, people have to go and listen to it anyway, but just how did that come about? What happened that got you thinking, okay, do you know what? I just need to put this out there.
Well, see, I've been a podcast listener, like an avid podcast listener for a few years now, and it kind of started the idea came into my head quite a while before I actually started Finding My Fit. And I originally wanted to do kind of like a girl talk, just gossip, chatty, chilled podcast with like one of my friends. But because at the time I was down in London and all of my close friends who I would want to do a podcast with were back in Blackpool, so it was kind of impossible to do one with somebody else. So I kind of just thought, well, fuck it, I'll just do one myself. So when was it? It was about May or June last year where I'd just gone through like a really big breakup. And I was at that point in my life where I was a bit like, just when you're having a bit of a like quarter life crisis. So I was just like, I need to get my feelings out. I felt a bit like I was 24 I was single, I was renting, I just felt like I had nothing going for me, and I was just in a bit of a pickle, basically. So that sparked the idea for my first episode, which is called I Thought I'd Have My Shit Together by Now. Like but I put obviously a little asterisk in the swear word, but that was basically like the premise of the first episode. And it just really started from there. And since I'm really into health and fitness and mindset and kind of personal growth, I thought I'm going to wove all of that together and create a podcast. And that's exactly what I talk about now.
No, cool. Definitely. Just to add, I'm a huge fan of swearing when you're expressing how you really feel. I think it's the most, you know what, apart from the fact that it's the most satisfying thing to do, sometimes when you actually offend someone because you're expressing how you feel, it's like the best thing. That's just me letting you know how I feel.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if I could swear on this podcast, because I realised I kind of swore a few times.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't even ask you beforehand if that was okay, but it just kind of came out.
Oh, yeah. No, it's good. It's good. Because you know what? It's in the natural pattern of people speaking. I've realised sometimes what happens is they kind of refrain from saying certain words, but actually they're I mean, I've got a really close friend of mine who our banter is probably just a whole load of expletives, and yeah, that's pretty standard.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. So are you now obviously physically closer to your friends and back to kind of having people around you, or at least near to you, who you grew up with or who you're friends with?
Yeah, so I didn't really have that many friends at at secondary school, because I was really ill. I kind of distanced myself from everybody. So the people that are like my best friends now, I met when I was 18, 18 to 20. So yeah, they all live in Blackpool or like the nearby area. My family's still there, so my parents are still there. So yeah, I'm a lot closer now. So when the pandemic ends, whenever that's going to be, I can finally go and see them, and it'll be a lot easier than London.
God, totally. Oh, that's good. Can I ask you, in terms of your time when you were at school, and you said that obviously you weren't there very much and you didn't really mix with so many people, what was that like? Was that an intentional action, or was it just because you were so consumed in focusing on almost like making the anorexia work?
Oh yeah, it definitely wasn't intentional. Like, I didn't purposely think, okay, I don't want to speak to anybody, like, go away. It's really difficult to explain. It's more like when you're anorexic, it's like that is the priority, and it's like it makes you feel like nobody likes you, and you get really, for a start, you don't physically have the energy to actually really interact with people. Secondly, you don't want to go out with people, like out and about, because you're worried that they might say, oh, let's go for food, or you just worry about having to actually go out somewhere. And thirdly, it kind of makes you isolate yourself. So you end up just kind of staying at home all day because you want to be exercising, or you don't want to have to go for food. And you just kind of think nobody really wants to interact with you. It's a really difficult to explain. It's like a really negative feedback loop. You isolate yourself, so people think that you don't want to be friends with them anymore because you don't make an effort. And because they then don't make an effort with you, you think that they don't like you. So it's like a really horrible kind of circle that you get into. So it wasn't really intentional, but it just kind of happened. So yeah, I don't really speak to anybody from my secondary school.
I can understand that. I mean, I relate to that in the context of my depression, where the negative dialogue is so strong and you just kind of don't want to. I mean, I'm not saying the experience was the same, but I can see the negative feedback loop that you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say most, but definitely me and most of the other people I know that have suffered with anorexia have also suffered with depression. They are very closely interlinked, and a lot of the time, like, most eating disorders are not independent. They usually come along with depression, anxiety, paranoia, OCD. It's they are very interlinked. For me, I did have very, very bad depression. And that probably, again, is along with the eating disorder, is probably why I felt like nobody liked me, because like you just mentioned, you get into this negative self-talk and you just feel like the world is against you.
Yeah, definitely. So explain to me now, what happened? Or was there like a moment where you almost like woke up when you came to like the end of your recovery and the beginning of your life, I want to say? Was there a moment like that?
What, like a kind of a light switch moment?
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I don't really think there was no day where I woke up and thought, right, today is the day. Well, I mean, no, there was many days where I woke up and thought, right, I'm going to recover from today. And it, of course, never happened, because it takes, months to kind of go down into an eating disorder, for want of a better term. So recovery is going to take just the same amount of time, if not more. For a lot of people, recovery takes years, and some people don't even ever fully recover. They just live with it forever. So I wouldn't really say there was a particular day where I woke up and I was fine. I think the time when I started to properly recover was when I was 19 and I just moved to uni, and I got like my first boyfriend. I made new friends at uni. I was going out, I was being a bit more social, and I had my uni work to focus on. And I think all of those combined kind of just shifted my focus from food and exercise. And I was really trying to push myself to be sociable and to not let the eating disorder take over my uni experience.
That's the fact that you got to uni and almost like you took control rather than the eating disorder being in control. Cool. Thank you. So overall, okay, what have been the most random things that you've learned about yourself? Like just in life? It's one of those really silly questions. I mean, if I was talking to you and a bunch of your mates, I'm sure your mates would be like, oh my God, it's so irritating when she like plays with her hair like this and she doesn't even realize. But have you had these moments where you've just kind of gone, oh, I didn't know that about myself. Oh, okay, that's new.
Oh, that's difficult. I don't, this is going to be a really weird specific one, but this is,
I like weird.
I don't know whether it's weird. I don't know. This is the first one that came to my head. So last year when I went through quite a big breakup, it was the first time that I'd been like broken up with, if that makes sense. So like he broke up with me. And at the time, like when it first happened, because it's never happened to me before, and at the time I was like, oh my God, this is like the worst feeling ever. Like I felt, just when you feel like the world has ended and you don't know what to do with yourself. And it only took me about 2 to 3 weeks and I was totally fine. And I'd moved on, and everyone was like, all my friends were like, you moved on. So like, how did you do that? You were crying 2 weeks ago and now you're totally fine. And that is the biggest thing that I've learned about myself recently, is I'm actually so much stronger than I think mentally. And when something happens, like something like a breakup, I kind of just accept things. So the moment that we broke up, I accepted that in my head. And from that point, I started moving on. And it's like, I just feel like I'm a realist. If something happens, I just accept it instead of thinking, oh, but we might get back together, or, oh, but this might change. And what about the future? Instead, I just think, right, well, this has happened. So now it's like time to move on.
I like that, being a realist.
Yeah.
Yes. That's a good way to be. And in being a realist, there's a lot of acceptance of this is where you're at now. So that's actually quite enlightening.
Yeah, very much so. That's kind of how I try and live now, is just taking each thing as it comes and not trying to dwell too much on things, and just accepting that not everything is going to be amazing and not everything's going to go perfect, and not everything is in your control in your life. So sometimes you do just have to accept that things happen, even if you don't want them to.
And that's amazing, because in contrast, if we listen to what you said at the beginning, when you were talking about your eating disorder and control, acceptance, and moving on to now, it's very, very different. And that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, thank you.
So we're going to talk about the law of attraction, because I know this is something that, are you a huge fan, or are you a believer or a follower?
Well, I actually didn't really know much about it until I would say like late last year. And then I have no idea how I came across it, but I started listening to a podcast about it. And everything that she was saying, I was like, this is kind of true. So I would say I do believe in certain aspects of it. I'm not like a really, really dedicated law of attraction person, but I do believe that what you put out, you get back. Whether that's from the universe or whether that's from the people around you, whatever you put, if you put out positivity, generally that's what you get back. And if your mindset is very positive, then you start to see more positives around you because that is what you're focusing on. And I also believe that the best things in life come to us when we're not trying really hard to get them.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that is some of the main points of law of attraction. So I do believe in it, definitely. And it is really something that I'm trying to implement into my life and also share on my podcast and my social medias.
Cool. And so how would you describe your journey in life to get to where you are at this point?
Oh, how would I describe it? Very, very up and down. Very up and down. I mean, yeah, I think throughout my whole eating disorder, it was obviously very difficult, very challenging. It was very up and down. From the point of after which I've recovered, I think life will always have up and downs, but I do feel much more now like I'm more chilled and a lot happier in myself. And yeah, I don't know. It's quite a tough question, really. Yeah, I don't know. I think just up and down is probably the best way to describe it. And I think that would be the same for a lot of people.
Yeah, no, up and down's good. I like that. And so, again, where you are right now, would you change anything?
Would I change? I mean, I don't know. I think everything that I've been through has made me who I am today. And that sounds really cliche, but it is so true. And I do think I'm probably a lot stronger mentally than I would be if I hadn't gone through everything that I've been through. But at the same time, with eating disorders, especially when I suffered for so long, and also during my prime kind of growth puberty years, I do have the side effects of such a long eating disorder will be with me forever. So, for example, I have osteoporosis in my hips and my spine, and that's irreversible. So that's something that I'm going to live with forever because of my past with an eating disorder. So I don't know. It's hard. I don't know whether I would change what I've been through because it's made me who I am and it's made me stronger. But at the same time, it's also given me lifelong things that I can't change now, if that makes sense. So it's like a bit of both, I guess.
I do. I wholly understand what you're saying. I'm going to move on. And, well, firstly, can I ask what's happened to your cats? Are they with you?
Yeah, my cats. So, I mean, they're still at home. So when I moved out of my family home down to London, the cats just stayed with my parents. So, yeah, they're all fine. They're still there and I miss them a lot.
Oh, so just to add, how many are there?
We've got 9.
Are you going to be adding any more to your collection?
Well, I really wanted to get a cat when I moved to Liverpool, but the flat that I'm in a little studio flat. I don't think it's big enough for a cat, and I think it's unfair to keep a cat locked in a room. So I think I'm going to have to wait to get one until I move to somewhere bigger, which hopefully won't be too long because I really do want to get my own cat.
Yeah. I look forward to seeing the new edition when it happens. So what are your plans? Like, what are the future plans? I mean, I think what I really want to say is let's just move the pandemic aside.
Yeah.
I kind of push it aside and let's just focus on what's possible. What's possible for you? What's happening? Tell us.
Well, I think in terms of where I want to live permanently, I don't really know. I'm in Liverpool now. I love it at the moment. And when my contract is due up in this studio, which is in 6 months, I'm going to reassess and think, do I want to stay in Liverpool? Do I want to carry on renting? Do I want to try and buy somewhere? In terms of my podcast, I would love for that to grow and I'd love to be able to do more collaborations and really just, I am really going to try and focus on pushing my podcast and promoting it and growing it this year. And I would love to even start to monetize it and make it like a bigger part of my life because I really love doing it. So I think that would be my ideal plan, and get a cat, of course, or 2. Or 3.
Of course.
I think that would be my ideal, really.
Cool. I think I'm all done. Have you got any questions, or do you have any questions for the listeners or anything like that?
I mean, I would love to know, like, whether other people follow the law of attraction. That would be really interesting, because I feel like more and more people are kind of talking about manifestation and reaching your dreams and your desires. So, like, do you follow law of attraction, or is it something that you've read into?
Yeah, but I mean, my kind of, I guess, exposure to the law of attraction is from a cultural and spiritual perspective, because my upbringing is Hindu, and we have something that obviously the karma is one, but the other side is it's like the law of resonance, and resonance is the vibrational frequency that you set yourself at in life.
Yeah.
And that's what my kind of teaching has been from a very, very young age. So I guess in that instance, it's definitely been something I've followed my whole life. And I think you're right. It's definitely become much more of a thing. People are understanding it. But from my personal perspective, because it's something I've always grown up with, the words around it, the kind of experiences around it are probably the same. So what's now considered by everyone as law of attraction, manifestation, like I will have my own take on it, but it essentially is the same thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes total sense. I do think it's very individual. Like there's the general idea of it, but it's how you want to interpret it. And yeah, I think maybe law of attraction originated from those spiritual and religious teachings. I guess it is kind of spiritual in a sense, because it's very kind of mind focused, and you're talking about vibrations and things that you can't necessarily see, but it's things that you can believe in and put into practice. So do you still practice any religion, or have you always had the same beliefs as you've grown, or have they changed now you're an adult?
I think my beliefs have essentially evolved as I've come to understand different learning, if that makes sense. So, for example, I think, oh God, I was like my mum's worst nightmare, because if she told me something, my first question was why. I was the why child. Yeah. And so from a very young age, I have always been reading spiritual scriptures and religious scriptures from all the faiths. And I spent quite a lot of my, I want to say, life looking at interfaith and spiritual dialogue and human understanding of these things. So from a very personal perspective, it's been something that's kind of always been a part of me. But I fully agree with what you said. It's a very individual thing, because I mean, people kind of talk to me most of the time and think I'm kooky, which is great, because that's what I am. That's fine. But if I was to start going into too much detail about the different scriptures that I've read and how I have interpreted them, someone else's interpretation would be totally different. So, yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes being kooky and being out there and eccentric is the best way to be, though.
I agree. So on the point of chocolate, have you got a favourite vegan chocolate bar?
Oh, favourite vegan chocolate? Well, I've actually, now it's weird you mentioned that, because today I saw, the Vegan Galaxy.
Oh,
I saw
yeah.
that in Tesco near me, and I've picked some up, and I've not tried it yet, but I'm quite excited to try that, because apparently it's really nice. I got this really nice, it was like a dark chocolate and orange vegan chocolate from the Co-op. I don't know, I think the brand was literally the Co-op brand, but that was really nice.
Mm-hmm.
Because I do love chocolate, and I get these really nice, they're kind of like protein bars, but it's pretty much a chocolate bar. And they're from the brand called My Vegan, which is kind of like My Protein, but like the vegan sister brand. And I work with them, so I get like certain amounts of product each month, and I'm obsessed with their protein bars. They're so nice.
Oh, I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, they're amazing.
Oh, cool. Excellent. Oh, and I highly recommend the Galaxy vegan chocolate. So good.
Oh, I'm excited
So good.
to try it.
Yeah. I mean, it's like almost the same as eating the non-vegan stuff, but
Yes.
why have that when you can have this?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh. So do you have any final messages for listeners, or anything final that you'd like to say?
I just want to say thank you so much to everyone who's listened, and yeah, I hope everybody's okay during this crazy time. Hopefully it's going to end soon, but who knows?
Until then, we're going to have vegan chocolate.
Yeah, until then, I'm sitting in bed eating Galaxy. Vegan Galaxy.
I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Eternal Paradigm. Join me next time.